Melrose, how are you feeling today?
Hi Daniel. First of all, thank you for the invite. How I'm feeling? Okay. I have a lot of mixed feelings today, so I
Okay.
don't have only one feeling. I had a compliment about the way I work, so that was good this morning, and it actually came from a young person, which gives it even more value.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's Friday, so it's the end of the week, so I'm feeling quite okay.
Very good. You had quite a positive day then.
Yes, I did.
Very
I
good to
did.
hear. What was the compliment about?
About how friendly I look and how friendly I come across. So
Okay.
coming from a young person, that is a really
That's
nice thing to hear, and I was really pleased to hear it because that's
good.
exactly how I should be doing my work, and I'm pleased because it comes naturally because I don't have to fake it, and I don't think you can actually fake something like that.
I don't think so either. I think authenticity is something that we humans pick up
Exactly.
naturally. So it's like that feeling that we get. So if we fake it, who would know?
Exactly.
So good job.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Melrose, you work within the youth sector and you've worked with the within the youth sector for quite a while now. What drove you into this arena?
Okay. I'm a parent myself. I have 4 children. 3 of them have dyslexia, and so I was helping them academically. Anyway, it's not easy to be a parent, it's not easy to have dyslexia. And what drove me, well, something quite by chance, tell you the truth, and most of the time I do like to take chances as well. So my son was involved in a project, very reluctantly, because he didn't want to join, but I told him, well, try a meeting once, and if you don't like it, then you don't go, but at least try it.
Yeah.
So we went to this meeting, he liked it, and he kept going. And at the end, this was a group for young people with dyslexia. It was part of a project.
All right.
And at the end, they had formed this friendship between them that they wanted to continue to meet. So they did. And I was one of the parents, the mummies, who actually took my son or my daughter to these meetings. And I used to just do some errands while he was at this meeting. And merely by chance, I just got involved in the admin of this group, just to do some meetings, because they used to do talks in school themselves about dyslexia. So it was like the young person with dyslexia explaining to students and to educators what it means to have dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that was very powerful for them to do, because these are young people aged 13 and 14.
Yeah.
They were really young, but they wanted to outreach so much. They wanted to do this. Look, we're fed up that educators sometimes tell us they don't know what dyslexia is. We're sometimes feeling ashamed to say that we have dyslexia, when it shouldn't be, because it's just another profile. Anyway, they did this outreach, and I started to get involved in the admin by contacting schools, making the appointments, because it's something I was good at doing anyway. Then the group wanted to explore European funding.
Okay.
And it was something, and that was the first time I heard of Erasmus Plus. And I said, okay, what's this? Anyway, just because I was involved in the admin part of the group, which wasn't a full-time job, far from it.
Was it voluntary though?
Sorry?
Was it voluntary though?
Yes, it was voluntary.
Okay, all right, okay.
And they thought of a name, so Dyslexic Teens Dialogue was the name that they gave the group.
I remember, yeah.
It was very important to put dyslexia in the name, dialogue, because they wanted to talk about dyslexia. In fact, their motto was, let's start a conversation. Because by starting a conversation, like I'm doing with you, we're going to exchange, we're going to learn, and we're going to become different people in the meantime.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were working through contacts we had with university, and they put me in touch as well, not only me, even the other parents. They were 11 young people at the time. And anyway, we started to explore this European funding, what it is, what youth exchange, what it would be. I started to go to talks to inform myself, to enter into this new world of European funding. And we wrote a project, myself and somebody else from university, which wasn't funded. And we were given the reasons why. I can see now that it was like not really up to standard, but it was, we learned what we shouldn't be doing. So that was very useful. And then I wrote another one after that, based on what we learned. and it was actually funded in 2015. We partnered with a group from Italy, from the north of Italy. So there were 11 of these young people, the founder group of Dyslexic Teens Dialogue,
Okay.
and another 11 young people from Italy.
So did an exchange?
And it
Okay.
was funded, and I remember when the results came through, and I said, oh my God, I've never done this. What have I done? You know, because I'm very impulsive. It was very exciting learning about how to apply, and it was very exciting for me to learn because I love learning. I wasn't working at the time. I was at home bringing up my children and supporting them academically. So anyway, at that moment, I still remember the feeling.
Yeah.
My blood went from my head down to my toe.
Oh, sure.
And I said, okay, let's do this, you know, step by step. Anyway, and we did this youth exchange. I managed it along with the group of adults that we had, because in every youth exchange there's a group of young people and then there's a supporting adults who make part of the team. I mean, you can never work on your own, but you work as a team.
Yeah.
But we did it, that project, and it was successful. So we had a week in Malta and a week in Italy.
Okay, very nice.
And it was these 11 founder members and 11 young people from Italy. And they were talking about what works, because even the project was named Let's Have a Conversation. They were talking about school, what works, what would they like to say to educators, what would they like to say to parents, to be supported better, what do they want to scream about, what are they pleased about. So it was along those lines. And in the meantime, my youngest had grown up. They finished fifth form, that was 2015, and it was always my dream to study, to go to university. So I did, and because I started getting involved with young people and I found that it worked, like the compliment I received this morning, I said, okay,
all right,
so I'm enjoying this, and young people are enjoying being with me, so that's a wow. So I enrolled in youth and community studies to do a degree. So I said, okay, if I'm going to study something, I'm going to study something that's relevant to what I'm doing, and maybe I can develop it further.
Yeah.
So I started part-time at the University of Malta, doing youth and community studies. That was 5 years. Then I continued to a master's degree, which I finished now, but this was in teaching and learning.
All right.
So I continued along these lines anyway.
As DMTL. Yes, okay, all right, okay, all right.
And in the meantime, I coordinated a project in 2016. Just coordinated, I didn't write it myself. Then I wrote another project, which was implemented in 2018.
All right.
And the last one that I created was, right now, it lasted 36 months, because it ran along with the COVID pandemic, which was very, very, very difficult to do. So anyway, I entered in this field of youth work, merely by chance, but it worked for me. I enjoyed it, I learned, I screamed as well, I learned the hard way, so there were ups and downs, but anyway, that's what I did.
What is dyslexia, Rose?
Dyslexia is a learning profile. I don't like to use the word disability, which is used. I don't like to use the word difficulty. I would say it is a profile, because we are all different learners and we all learn in a different way. But dyslexia impacts you mostly because it is discovered, and hopefully it is discovered, because sometimes it isn't, when you are young, so in your formative years. And it impacts your school performance because it has to do with literacy, and everything has to do with literacy in the world and at school. So once you encounter that difficulty, it's like a barrier. It's like if I give you a text in Chinese and I tell you read it, you can't. You just can't, because those symbols that are part of the Chinese alphabet, I think it's called alphabet, you cannot encode them to get out the sounds, and you cannot merge the sounds together to make a word, because those symbols mean nothing to you. Now, dyslexia, in a very simple way, is definitely something like that. I'm not dyslexic myself. I found it very difficult to understand my children who had dyslexia before I discovered the first of my children who have dyslexia. I couldn't understand, because she was intelligent. She could list all the oceans at 7 years, because it was part of her geography. So imagine Pacific, Atlantic, you know, these words that are specific. They're not everyday usage words, they're specific. But she could remember those. and she could remember maths, like the method. So she was definitely not what we would call, and it's not the right word, like not learning to read because she's stupid.
Yeah.
What is stupid? It's a horrible word, because actually nobody's. So there was this like mismatch.
Okay.
Like, how can this girl, who is outgoing and everything, and she's age appropriate and everything, how can she not read? I remember there was the word look. You know, just L-O-O-K. And I would like, look. There's the eyes in the middle, look.
Yeah.
Then you turn the page, you know these books when children are 7 years old and 6 years old,
Yeah.
they have a lot of repeats of the same word.
Yes.
And there's a big picture and there's just one sentence. So before I discovered this, she used to just flip the book. She used to know it by heart. So for me, she was reading when actually she wasn't.
Okay.
She was seeing the picture because they would do it so much at school. She'd see the picture
Memory,
and know
through
the
memory.
memory.
Yes, okay.
But then when they're 7, then when it starts to get a bit more complicated, you know, a bit more vocabulary, and I couldn't understand how I would tell her what the word is, and a couple of seconds after she would just forget it.
And you knew about dyslexia at the time? Or?
I knew about dyslexia. I knew dyslexia existed because Tom Cruise has dyslexia and I used to like him. But I used to know what dyslexia is roughly.
Yeah.
I know you can't read and write, but it's much more than that as well. And it's a spectrum. And I remember I took her for testing. I spoke to a family member and she told me she suggested to take her for testing. And I did, because I followed up. And her dyslexia is very mild because, as I mentioned before, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And she could copy correctly as well from the board. So that's another sign when they don't copy, or as they write a mirror image. They can't tell the B from the D, and they're right, actually.
And usually that is the misconception, that dyslexia is all about that.
No, it isn't. It's a bit more. So anyway, she got her result that, yes, she's dyslexic, because obviously she's age appropriate in everything except in reading. That is why cognitively she was okay, age appropriate, but then in reading, her reading age was well below her biological age. So that is where the mismatch happens, and that is how, well, in simple terms, I'm not a professional, I'm in this area, I'm just a parent. I've studied about dyslexia even for assignments because I took the opportunity.
Yeah.
But that is how it is. Now, for her, it didn't impact her life because she's on the milder side of dyslexia. But then I have twin boys who are both dyslexic at the same time, so that was very upsetting for me because you're dealing with different persons anyway, because they're individuals in their own right, and different type of dyslexia as well.
Yeah.
Because dyslexia impacts you emotionally, psychologically, socially, obviously academically, mostly, and it never really goes away.
Yeah.
You navigate around it, you find strategies that work for you. In fact, all the three of them had dreams, and they reached their dreams, so they weren't my dreams, they were theirs, but they wanted to study and to continue to progress, so they progressed to a degree. One has a master's degree as well. They just had to study and work so much harder than anybody else, because reading to people who don't have dyslexia comes automatically. That is why I could never understand why she couldn't see and read look. Because I see look and it comes to my mind look. But for them, they have to decode it. And even when they have literacy support, which is one-to-one, it is a system of decoding. Because that automaticity that comes to people who don't have dyslexia, that is where they lack. And they need to merge as well. They need to merge sounds, which is a problem as well for them. Just like sequences is a problem. For instance, you cannot say, look, Daniel, I'd like you to go outside and move my car, then I want you to get a bag from the kitchen, empty it into the fridge. Some of them go into the cupboard and just fold up the blood, like you've lost them. They cannot, you know. So even instruction at school has to be
structured,
stepped, and 2 steps at a time. Now they're the other one. Otherwise they're lost, because the sequential memory as well, it affects a lot. And they even take it into your place of work, obviously. And for me, the way I see my children, it's always, there's a heavy backpack. There's always a heavy backpack. But and then, yes, you have to work harder, and then it's a lot of luck. It's the support you get, the teachers you get, the encouragement that you get, the opportunities for success that are created for you if need be, and then if you're older, the ones that you create for yourself, so you can be successful elsewhere and not lose your self-esteem. Because dyslexia affects a lot the self-esteem, because you are at school in your formative years, and other children are reading, other young people are reading, and you're falling behind because you cannot read, or because you read incorrectly, or because you are flagged because you have help. It might be a problem as well. So yes, it can impact, unfortunately, because we are a literacy-based world. That's all. Because in other environments it won't impact.
What were your feelings at the time as a mother?
When my daughter, when I knew about my daughter having dyslexia, at the time there was no internet. It's that long ago. So I remember, I think I read every single book that there was in the Floriana library and in the branch library in Cinema. So I informed myself a lot. I followed her a lot at school. So I put aside my ambition to work and to do this and to do that. So anyway, that is what I chose to do. So I supported her a lot academically until she said, "Mom, I can do this." I said, "Okay, that's great. That's exactly what I want," because I remember her telling me that. I decided not to send her to private lessons. I thought that I was going to overload her more than she's overloaded at school, because the impact, they have to work so much harder at school that I said I'm not going to give her more of the same. So I remember she was in the Scouts, we used to dance, we used to jump in puddles, and we used to do all these things in the afternoon. So she goes to school fresh. And what I decided to do as well, and obviously she was involved as well, was do the O-levels that she can do. To get out of the model that you should be doing taught O-levels so you can go there, because if you have dyslexia and if that is what you want to do, there are other ways of reaching your goals. With my daughter, she did 6 O-levels and she managed to follow the road that most follow. But with the boys, it was the same decision, a bit of a rebellion against the system from me. So no private lessons, we're not doing well, it doesn't matter. They were in Scouts as well. They had this group going, one of them, Dyslexic Teens Dialogue. They were public speaking about dyslexia, which did them a lot of good. So my son, who was one of the founder members, he was missing school to do talks in school. But I said, this is going to do so much good, then another lesson. But that was the risk I took as well. There might be parents who say, they miss a lesson. Yes, because for him it gave him an outreach, and it developed him as well. And I admire them all at that age to talk about dyslexia, to talk about what is wrong with you in an academically or in a school environment sort of thing, to a hall full of other students and teachers. And I think they learned a lot from them because it was their lived experience. And I remember I used to accompany them sometimes as well. And there used to be other students, and I think I know. I think my cousin is like that, because he's finding difficulty to read. So you get all this, and they used to answer, it doesn't matter, even we're like that. But look, we're here talking about it.
It gives you power.
Great. It was great. And as well, with the boys, they didn't have the default 6 O-levels to go to 6 1, whatever. So one went to ITS. The other one went to MCAST. They found the support they need, I have to say that, because they did. So hats off to MCAST and to ITS. I need to mention them because they were key. They were key, and they were granted a reader, finally. Of course, before they weren't, because it was thought that they were advantaged with having a reader.
And assistive technologies only became popular in the past couple of years.
Yes, but still, if you're tested and you are not granted, you could have a robot. near you, but if they think that it's going to give you an advantage, or if they think you don't need it, then it's not going to be given to you.
Yeah.
But they did, and they progressed there, and they kept progressing up to degree level, both of them, obviously. Then they learned how to study. For instance, like you mentioned, the one that went to MCAST and progressed to ITS and then to University of Malta, found his way of studying. So he used to use a lot the immersive reader, because that takes the strain out of him having to decode, having to read. That is tiring. So he found his own way. And like that, yes, I'm sure it was a bigger struggle than anyone else
For sure.
to study at that level, but he managed. Obviously, there were a lot of discussions and a lot of, not a lot of giving up actually, because he was very focused. So yes, there is hope, but you have to have the courage as well to go against the flow, to trust your instincts, and you say, it's okay. I remember I had a very heated discussion with school because we came to drop Maltese. And it was like I was asking for something that I was condemning my son to, like a lifetime of
Despair.
misery or whatever. I said, look,
Yeah.
you just cannot do it. It's like me telling me, look, I'm going to give you the best coach, the best gear, the best shoes, and you're going to earn in the Olympics. I tell him, look, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Like Maltese and English together, in certain times of dyslexia, they will work against each other. Because when you're trying to get used to a sound of, for instance, ch, which is the C with the dot in Maltese, and in English is CH for church, and you're trying to learn two languages, there's a lot of interference, because you're trying to learn a code of one language. And at the same time, the same code is different from another language, and then you have two codes. So I decided to take one of these plunges that would exclude them from university, and so I said, they just can't do it. It's okay. If they want to do it, they can do it later on. But at the moment, I'm chopping their work. I'm chopping their work because this is stressful. It's, it's creating a situation. It is not doing any good. So they're going to do the O-levels that they can do, and they're going to decide with me what they're going to decide. And one of them did 4, I think. I don't know if the other one did 5. But they progressed in a different way. One is a qualified chef now with a degree anyway. That's what he wanted to do all along. And the other one has food technology from MCAST, hospitality management. So they're doing what they want to do in any case.
That's good.
It's good.
Sometimes it's just a numbers game as well. It's like we have, I'm not sure whether it happens in Malta only, but sometimes the more you do, the better. And in some cases, it's not, sometimes less is more. Sometimes the more focused you are in what you're doing, and you're doing it to the best of your ability and playing by your strengths, that is sometimes more beneficial than trying to do things or to improve, in inverted commas, your weaknesses as well. Sometimes it's good to play by your strengths and to make your strengths even sharper. But I think the lesson here is about resilience.
It's about resilience, and it's about accepting as well. And it's about not trying to fit in a box. Because sometimes we focus a lot on, like, you need to get, I don't know, you need to do this, you need to do that, educationally especially, like I had from school. I mean, I'm sure it was part of their doing their job properly, but he just didn't fit in that model. And there are more than one models of success, whatever success is. Because at the end of the day, the success belongs to the young person or the student, and your job or your, let's say your job or your work is to facilitate that, or to accompany, let me say, because I don't like to use the word help either, to accompany as long as they need it, and how they need as well. So not to be overprotective, and to take risks as well, because I did take a risk. Because I remember back then, even like the top students were going to private lessons all the time, and I said, what am I doing? My students, my children are not doing so well. I know they have a learning difficulty. And what am I doing? I'm not giving them extra help. But I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to overload them. And then they will develop. And if need be, it's not a race. It's not a rat race. And they're not rats. Because a rat race is rats. So anyway, so I don't want to be part of that. So I did that with them and it worked out because they just couldn't at that point. But what is so great about the way we learn, because it's something I researched as well, is that your mind continues to develop. So that is why you get people, for instance, who would have not done well at school and then they end up doing a degree in their later years. So how would you explain that? If they didn't do well at school, what has happened in the meantime? But the brain continues to develop. You learn the way you learn. You become better at it as an adult because you would have practiced anyway, time management, things like that, and because you want.
Yeah,
And
there's
when
value
you have
in it.
that ambition, and when you can, like you mentioned, the resilience, when you are resisting, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
All these difficulties, getting tired quicker than other people to get tired. So you have to chop up your studying. You have to plan for that you cannot study for 3 hours, for instance. It's too much. So you have to plan your whole day around that. But these are things that you learn along the way. And sometimes time gives you that advantage then when you are older. But I think ambition, and then is the drive.
Yeah.
And proving people wrong, you have no idea. How you have no idea, because I have to get that. I've met obviously educators who are wonderful people, and they were educators during Parents' Day that were like...
It's the projection, eh?
Do I have to listen to this? No, I don't have to, because it's not going anywhere. That literally, tell you about your children, how, like, they're not doing well, like, I said,
I'm surprised.
I know more than you, I know exactly, but it's part of their learning journey. To not be good at this moment doesn't mean anything about the future. But yes, it was very discouraging even for me. In fact, sometimes I used to just leave Parents' Day because I weren't going anywhere. There was nothing constructive going on. And then there were educators, I remember one in particular, she used to say, he participates so much, he wants to learn so much, and he always wants to give out the copybooks and things like that. And as a parent, I used to go out with her, I say, wow, how engaged he is with this teacher, even though he's getting a 3 out of 10. Don't give him 5. It's 3, this it deserves. It's 3, it's fine. I'm not asking you to mask anything, but give him other experiences where he can be successful in class.
I would say that the education transcends the subject that you're teaching.
Yes, and I'm afraid it has to be measured.
Yeah.
No, with a number.
For sure.
And I always tell, I used to work as an LSC before the job I have now. So I was very much in my element there.
All right.
And I used to tell them, don't get discouraged about the marks. The marks are not you. The mark is not for you. It is for that work, for that test, at this point in time. So put it in context. Okay, see the corrections.
Yeah.
And here I appeal to teachers to be kind in their corrections as well. Try harder is not kind when they would have tried the hardest they can. So put something positive. Students who struggle, no, they struggle. You don't have to remind them. But you can, say something nice or something that is true, but something positive, something that they can use it as a step to improve. But otherwise, our education system is what it is. It has to be assessed, it has to be given a number. Most of the time, it represents a lot of other techniques that will make you successful. Is like understanding what the teacher wants from you, understanding what is important, so we study that just that. Those are hints I used to give.
Yes.
My students I suppose say, pay attention. Because they're not expecting you to study everything. Because you can't write everything in 2 hours.
And sometimes just understanding the concept behind the explanation. If you understand the concept, you'll get there much quicker.
Exactly. But it can be a very cruel world for young people with learning difficulties, for sure. It's up to us. Because we maybe talk a bit too much or say things that maybe are better not said. Let me say that. Because it happened to my children. And they still carry them, despite all the successes.
I think what we have to keep in mind here is that we are all works in progress. So I think the techniques that you're mentioning, the finding the way how you study, using different tools, I think it applies to everyone. And if we don't go through these kind of adversities for many reasons, we don't develop the ability or the mindset that, listen, how can I do this better? What can assist me to not play with my strengths necessarily, but to function better, to feel more at ease. And there are some tools that work for us today that they might not keep on working in the future as well. So we have to develop that kind of insight about ourselves to try different things that even for productivity purpose, not just to read and write, but even for productivity purposes, or how we can be more listen actively, for example. How can I practice active listening more? How can I keep track on that? Or our well-being, keeping gratitude journals, for example. What will help me feel less stressed, for example? How can I be more resilient?
Exactly. These are things that unfortunately are not
Thoughts.
given much importance at school. But you asked me previously, and I mentioned the project that the last one that I created, and which lasted 36 months through the COVID pandemic. This project, I created it in 2019 because I had attended a training in Prague about learning to learn. Learning to learn is a key competence within Europe for young people. And that is exactly what you are mentioning now. It is the awareness of how you learn. And it goes into a lot of other areas in your life, which you mentioned, into emotions and into the way you live and into the way that you relate with other people, because it branches out as well. It's part of education in neuroscience, which I know is trying to be promoted here. So in a nutshell, learning to learn is called metacognition, and it can be taught even from primary school. So we can actually teach pupils at primary school to be aware of the way they learn and how to study for that. From very, very young. There is research that shows that they can do that. But we don't teach students how to study. They need to discover it by themselves. That takes time. And if they do, because if you ask me, if I know my best way of studying, I would tell you that I haven't figured it out completely. And I've studied now, because I took university at 50, I started university again. So anyway, and I'm still studying now, because now I'm studying for another course.
Okay, all right.
So still, I would tell you, and I've researched about this, and I've coordinated a project with young people from Malta and Italy about learning to learn. And I can still tell you, if I had to apply it for myself, I'm still discovering. But I know, because I've tried it, and it took me time. But if we give students, if we teach metacognitive skills, they're called, and they're transversal, so they can go. They're not context. They're general. They can go from one context to another. So if I know how to relate or how to learn in one context, which is school, I can easily take it into my work context, into my social life, into my family life. But with these skills and the methods and the tools to learn, they can have a toolbox of study methods and tools that they can use even from primary school. And these are things that are now. So they don't have to be technology. So knowing how to use a mind map. Tell me primary school? Yes, of course, why not? That have 4 branches only. It's still a mind map. A mind map for biology, I was talking to students where I work, has like 10 branches, and those branches open up even more. But the concept is there. So using flashcards, for instance, for revision, using, believe it or not, highlighting and summarizing is something that we do, but research shows that it's not effective for long-term learning. So why are we doing this still? You know? So these skills can be taught and can be embedded in a lesson, as hints. So they don't have to be separate, but like that, it's like, okay, what worked before, even metacognitive thinking, if the teacher, while she's teaching, explains aloud, what have we done similar to this before? Okay, that. What can we use from it? What can we change? That is the skill. And that in itself develops even neurons. You make connections in your brain, which is a wonderful thing, because your brain can make new connections all the time. That's why we improve. And with students that are so young, it becomes even more effective. So, and then they take it up. So this toolbox of study tools and methods, they continue to take it up. Trying, adapting, learning, listening to videos. I used to study listening to videos because I used to have to clear up the house. Most of my stuff most of the time. But I'm not studying. I had a student now a couple of months ago who told me, you know, miss, I don't have the patience to sit down and study for 3 hours. And he was like pacing up and down. And I said, okay, who said that you have to sit down for 3 hours to study? And he's pacing. And he said, well, we have to sit down to study. I told him, no. Why? I told him, that's vintage, like me. It's a vintage idea to sit down to study for 3 hours. No. You have notes, you record them. Listen to them. If you have a YouTube video but you need time, look for it, listen to it.
Yeah.
Do other things. You like movement? Okay, go for a walk. But study in the meantime. If you're on a flight, put your notes on. You know, learn as you're doing something else. So you don't have to sit down. Oh, really? You told me? It never occurred to me. I thought, yes, you don't have to write notes, you can say them. You've got your mobile, it's so handy. It's a tool. You know, there's a lot of different ways. Like I told you before as well, my son, he uses an immersive reader. So he's doing something else and he's reading an academic paper. Well, the computer is reading it.
Yeah.
You know, all these things. So those, I think, would help all students, not only those with learning difficulties.
It's a mindset, though. We have to teach the people the mindset of a self-explorative journey. So you need to be willing to go through the journey to explore yourself and to learn new stuff about yourself. At the start of the podcast, you mentioned something very interesting to me, and that as we're conversing, we're learning.
Yes, of course.
And we're changing.
Yes,
and that is something that stuck with me throughout our conversation. But we have first of all, together we have to have the will to explore ourselves and to try different things about ourselves. Something that I very much believe is that our core remains the same most through our life. I think that's what I've come to learn so far in my life. But the way we behave, the way we materialize that core of ourselves, it's different. It changes from time to time because we change, because we grow. So the things that we used to do 5 years ago, 10 years ago are not the same. Or the things that we used to have fun doing 5-10 years ago are not the same. Our core is the same, but we change as an individual. We grew wiser, perhaps. We grew more fond of other things. So we have to always relearn ourselves. We have to relearn and learn about ourselves.
Yes, and unlearn certain things as well.
That's true.
Yes, unfortunately, what you say is true. But I had a conversation this morning as well with about how much we look up to educators, which is the right thing. How much we bring up our children to respect educators. You know, our teacher, you know, see the teacher is always right. But teachers are human as well. And sometimes when maybe they say things to students, maybe not meaning badly, but it's taken badly by the student. That is where a student would shut down from learning. That is when a student starts to believe that he or she is unable to learn. And I've met these students. And unfortunately, they tell me in Maltese that they're stupid because that's what they've been made to feel.
Yeah.
So it could be not intentional from the part of the educator, but some comments, for instance, like, I'm going to use my name. If Mary Rose understood it, everybody can understand it in front of a class. Is that helpful? Of course not. Is the student going to carry it all along, and it will never go away? So the potential to learn is there, always. Sometimes it's either the system or the syllabus, which is overloaded, in my opinion. There are a lot of things that kill this enthusiasm of learning. I love the concept of learning, and learning happens when there is a change. That's why I told you, I'm going to have this conversation with you, and I'm going to go out a changed person. And you, because you've heard me as well, because we've exchanged these ideas.
Yeah.
And some change has happened to us in this hour, and that is because we've learned.
Yeah.
If there is no change, then there is nothing that has been learned, in my opinion. But, you know, even sometimes going to the supermarket and just overhearing something or seeing a new product, it makes you think, maybe because it's packaged, you've learned, you know, okay, what have they done this? Is it making me bite? Is it worth it? You know, it's my journey of thought, like you mentioned.
It happens consciously and unconsciously.
Yes,
so whether you're aware of what you're learning, some things you don't need to be conscious to, or you are consciously aware of what you're learning. Sometimes some things happen.
No, we don't even know. But as well, again, let me go back to dyslexia, because anyway, that's my area. Some school experiences, unfortunately, for students with dyslexia, lead them to believe that they are unable to learn. But then I have to point it to us. Are we able to teach the way they learn? Are we able to teach the way every single student learns? Or do we only have one default lesson that we continually, year after year, using the same method, using the same, are we delivering that? Because you have a class full of different learners, so a teacher's job is not easy at all. And it's a different class each time. But again, the default lesson is good for, I would say, the default students, if they exist. I don't even know how to define them, but it definitely doesn't reach everyone, for sure, for whatever reason. And in that way, they are made to feel that they are unable to learn, and that is something very, very, very troublesome and very worrisome, because they actually carry their inability to learn. I've been told, and it shocks me even now, I've been told, like, I'm unable to learn. I don't know, how can you explain, that people get degrees when they're older and they would have not done well at school? What would have happened in the meantime? Part of a lot of other things. Luck is one of them as well. And opportunity and everything else.
No, there is no overarching statement here. There are
a lot of
things. Yes,
a lot of input.
A chain of unfortunate events, perhaps.
Or fortunate ones.
Fortunate ones.
Because I've had fortunate ones as well that have helped me along the way.
That was one of my questions that popped to mind. What did dyslexia teach you about life?
Okay, well, dyslexia made me scream a lot.
For sure, I can imagine.
But looking back, it was very upsetting, because I love school and I love studying and I love learning at the end of the day. So I would say I should have put it the other way, because studying is like a consequence of the exam system. No, when we learn, when you learn in school, it has to be measured. So the measure is the exam or whatever, something that puts us something out of 10 or 100. So dyslexia was something very horrible for me, extremely actually. And when one child was, I would say diagnosed, I don't know if it's the right word, I said, okay, let's do this. And then I had one of the twin sons that I have, and I said, okay, all right, let's do this, you know what I mean? The other one was like grown up enough not to need my support. I'm going to start with this one, but hey, I've done this before, I can do it now, I can improve, I can adapt, because he's a different learner now. Anyway, but in the meantime, the other one was diagnosed as well. So I had twins at the same time, two different learners, obviously, because they're individuals, two different types of dyslexia, so that made me scream a bit more. But I have to say that I am where I am today because of dyslexia. So I managed to maybe turn it around, so I can give a bit of, the pat on the back for myself, because it was very discouraging and a lot of hard work. And a lot of hard work as well on a daily basis. Because it's like the homework is like never ending. Sometimes I have to put my foot down with school. Look, you can't do these. You just can't. We can't do 30 sums, but we can do 10. This is where it's okay. It's my responsibility. I'm taking the risk of doing 30 sums, but we can't. We just can't. But I studied and I continued because of dyslexia. So I wrote projects, I benefited from Erasmus Plus training as well. I've met a lot of people. I studied, which wasn't easy as well anyway at my age, and I was very difficult to live with. I still am actually. But I've found help and support along the way for me to continue studying as well, because when you do study at a certain level, I am a person that gives up very quickly. So I did that a lot lately, and having somebody to encourage you to carry on is really good.
Are you a person that gives up really quickly?
Yes, I don't show it, but at least a couple of persons know that part of me.
Okay.
Yes. Because when you study part-time and you're working, and my children are grown up, so I wouldn't say they need specific attention. But yes, people who know me personally know that, there's a lot of things going on, and like the easiest thing is to lessen your list of the to-do list. And your to-do list includes assignments or a dissertation maybe, or something you're really getting stuck in, like you really got stuck and you don't know how to get out of it. But I've been lucky to be supported as well, so I can't say that I've been brave, because I haven't been brave all the time. And then things happen to you in your personal life that impact as well, just like when you start a course, it's a miracle when you actually finish it, because there's so much going on. It's just not only the course content alone and the difficulty or otherwise, it's the things that are going on in your life, the things that you have to do, the work that you have to do, so it's all, you're trying to bring it all together. But without dyslexia, I wouldn't be where I am, which is a good place for me. I'm pleased with myself. I'm not boasting or anything, because I've worked to get this far.
But it's good to feel at ease in your own skin.
Yes, but anyway, yes, I still have dreams, in fact.
Good.
I still have dreams, yes. In fact, I always say sometimes, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, and I am quite grown up, I think. But yes, I dream, so that is something positive. Yes, I tend to despair a lot when it gets tough and when you're stressed.
I mean,
but
you're human, right? So
I'm human, yes, for sure. But without dyslexia, so without that, what was tragic to me, and it remains to a certain extent, because there are families going through what I went through, it's not easy. No, so I managed to kind of turn it around in some sort of...
You mentioned that the support system and the positive impact that the support system had on you. However, what would you say were the internal resources that you've built along the years in order to help you keep afloat?
I'm not brave. So I think it was not being allowed to give up.
Not allowing yourself, or no?
No.
Okay.
Not being allowed.
Not being allowed,
Not
okay.
being allowed, or I don't know, making fun in a way that works for me. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. For instance, I've just finished a master's degree. It was very, very intensive. I just submitted my dissertation a week ago. I'm still recovering, actually.
A week is not enough.
No.
You're still in jet lag mode at this stage.
But for this course, I can't even count the times I was going to give up. Really. You know what I mean? I can't, because there were things going on in my personal life as well. I was passing through other things as well, so many changes, and you have to study at the same time. Studying needs you to be calm, to be there.
Receptive of
Yes, not to have other things going on. You cannot. That is why sometimes maybe students with dyslexia have a difficulty to study, because there's so many other things going on. To study, you have to be calm. You have to be, you know where you have to get. You have to have the right guidance so that you can arrive. I don't expect hand-holding with a degree, you know what I mean? But at least you have a good direction. But no, when I get stuck and there are other things getting along the way, then it's a bit overwhelming. And then yes, this I can't even count how many times. But there was a person who kept me going, and it was fine. And really, I can't count. But it's all this dyslexia all along. Dyslexia opportunities, dyslexia challenges. But maybe, I don't know, I don't feel that I've done anything special, to tell you the truth. I just dream myself. I love learning. I love meeting people. I think I've been helpful, just like people have been helpful to me. So what I received, the support I received, it's the same that I give out to my students, because it's in my experience, so I can give it even more, because it's worked for me, and so I can offer it to students to see if it works for them or if it doesn't. Because I always tell them, I'm in student support, my job, and I always tell them, look, we're going to have a conversation. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You have every right to leave this room and you say, my goodness, what a load of rubbish I've heard. And if you say that, I'll be so pleased. And they say, why? I said, yes, because you've listened to me, you've processed what I've said, you've decided, because you know yourself that it doesn't work for you, and that's exactly what I wanted to achieve. So maybe next time we can have another conversation and tell me, Miss, have you got something else to offer me? Because what you said last time is like, doesn't work for me. I say, okay, let's discuss something else. And you offer options,
Mhm.
and that's all. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it could well not work now and
Yeah.
work later.
Earlier you mentioned the concept of the community aspect, and right now you reminded me of that again. That when you're in a community, you give something and you receive something. There's that element of reciprocity,
Yes.
the give and take, and the importance of a community that we, even though we're individuals with our own unique abilities and skill set and personalities and all these nice things, we are part of something bigger than us as well. And I think that gives us solace in a way as well. So we find ourselves in something which is bigger to us. And I think that you did something great to be involved yourself and your kids as well in a community with people who share the same difficulty.
Yes, in fact, it was something that always used to surprise me. When we did these projects and even when the group was formed, the sense of isolation that I wasn't aware of, because I cannot understand the feeling of a young person who goes to school and feels isolated socially, because maybe they don't have friends. So because school is not only an academic environment, it's also a social environment. And school is an environment where young people make friendships. And friendships are part of the development, anyway. So it never occurred to me how much they felt isolated because of their dyslexia. So I would think it was a matter of shame, it was a matter of not understanding, but being afraid to say yet again that you're not understanding. You reach a limit, you can't say yet again. That when this project where these 11 founder members of Dyslexic Teens Dialogue met, and they wanted to meet again, because they knew that the other members of the group all had dyslexia, and it created that belonging. And when we used to meet in the projects, so we used to meet the Italians, for instance, in the first two projects we didn't have Zoom back then, so they actually used to meet there in the project. So they come from the airport and they meet. And because they know that everybody else is dyslexic, they just carry on, and there's the language barrier because the Maltese don't know Italian that much and the Italians don't know English that much. But I used to sit and just watch them meeting for the first time.
They know what they have in common.
Because, and there's that affinity immediately. We hardly know names, but there's an affinity. He's dyslexic, she's dyslexic, Mike Mill, because we're in the project together. And this project was for groups of young people with dyslexia. That affinity, it was something that amazes me, and it's the human need to belong as well. And in school, obviously, when you have a learning difficulty, you're in a numerical minority anyway. So you are like the minimum, not the minimum, I'm sorry, not the majority, I'm not getting
the minority group.
The minority, sorry. Okay, I got that. The minority, it's very simple, nobody can tell that. And it's the same everywhere else. Now in the last project I wanted to break that. So the one that I created, the last one, I said, okay, so Dyslexic Teens Dialogue is a youth group for young people with dyslexia. So what are we doing? We keep doing projects and we keep putting down that the other group needs to have dyslexia as well. So I said, the world is not there. We're not working in a real world situation. Because a real world situation, you are a learner in a world where there are learners of different ages, and there are learners with different profiles. So with this project, I went a bit to break the system of school where we are in classes of the same age. I don't have another solution, so I don't want to appear very smart. But we learn at school with young people that are of the same age. Most of the time of the same gender as well. In Malta, they're either all girls or all boys. In government school, they're mixed, which is a good thing in my opinion. So I just put in a big gap from like 15 to 23, different stages of school. Different, so we have maybe a Form 4 student with dyslexia. She's working with a medical student at university, so top academic achiever, and they're working with somebody with ADHD, and we're learning together. So that is the mix that we created, and it worked fantastically. Because even the student who is in medicine, third year, was awed at working with a 14-year-old. And she learned from her. And the 14-year-old learned from the university student.
Okay.
And they could all contribute together. So it was very exciting to watch. You know, it was a different, because usually it's like different learners, different language, obviously. They had a bit of a language.
Different stages as well.
And different stages, yes. I did it like that in my head on purpose. So let's see what comes out of it. And they worked really well together. Because it wasn't about exams, it was about learning. About learning to learn. So it wasn't measured. There weren't, you got a 3 out of 10. It was, look, this is
It's about
how
the
I'm
experience.
learning. Look, this is the study method I use, because they were exchanging study methods as well. You know, we're exploring study methods, teaching, facilitating this learning, and they're teaching it, the peer teaching and learning to each other. So they were working in these groups. So even with the Italians, you know, there were people who were in their secondary school, there were people doing the maturità, which is like their A-levels, and there were, I think, one who had started university and the others were on the way. So there were this mix of learners. And they are all learning how they learn. So it was nothing content, it was nothing something is more difficult because I've done A-level biology and you haven't done biology at all.
Yes.
It was nothing about content knowledge, it was about learning to learn. So that is what. It was exploring, literally learning, the way we learn.
Mm-hmm. From what you've learned, Maros, on this front, and even so far in life, if a youth of any age, let's say a youth, is feeling lost, hadn't had the opportunities to expose themselves for certain opportunities or anything, what would you say or recommend that the first step that they should take to learn?
Being lost is a really good place, because you realize that. So you realize that maybe you could journey further. So what happens, I don't know, we'll have a chat. I think we'll start from a chat on what learning means to them.
Okay.
That's all. And where they're getting stuck, and where I can actually convince them that they can learn. From there it starts. Because being lost sometimes, students think they can't learn. Because they haven't learned. Because they haven't been taught the way they learned, and they aren't aware of the way they learn. So just like that student who I haven't seen for a while, but he's still studying, was pacing up and down, and he's going to tell me, and I told him it's vintage to sit down for 3 hours, vintage like me. Why should you know what I mean? So I think maybe what the student told me this morning, and it was a really nice compliment, that maybe the approach first of all, and for me to listen as well.
The openness.
The openness. And I say I'm very open sometimes. When students come to me in my place of work and they're ready to give up, I tell them, I was ready to give up a week ago. At the very end of my course, I understand you, they remain like that. I said, yes, I have to be authentic with you. I understand, but you know what? Hey, I'm not going to let you give up. Just like somebody didn't let me give up. And I'm going to say exactly what they said to me and see if it works for you. So come next week. Let's think of a plan. You know, what decision do you have to make? Should we talk it over? Shall we write it? For instance, with the students, and some actually wrote. She had to take a decision whether she wanted to continue studying or not. And we spoke a million times. So let's put it down. Get an A3, split it in the middle, advantages and disadvantages. Now take it with you. Because now we've listed them. Now it's your decision. Now you
and sometimes just about getting the
and putting
thoughts.
it on paper, and it worked for her, but we had been discussing, and I said, look, let's try something else. Because we're trying here. I have no idea what to tell you. I really don't. You know, I'm just going to try from my experience, from maybe what worked for me or what I saw working in others, but then it's up to you. I'm just going to give you some options. Please talk it over to friends. They have important things that they can tell you because they are living the experience with you. Your parents, anybody. The more information you get, then start throwing away. This is not good, not choosing. Throw away. Throw. This is not good, this is not. And hopefully you arrive to take the decision that impacts your life, because nobody can take it for you. You have to take it. I can't take that responsibility. Nobody can.
Sometimes the fear of the unknown as well. Well, what if something goes wrong?
Fear of the unknown still. So it's a long way to go. Yeah, it's right here. Yes, it's daunting being a young person now. It's not easy.
There are so many options.
Yes, but there's so many challenges as well.
Yes.
There's a lot of challenges for young people now, a lot of standards that they have to reach. I think it's become more difficult. The expectations are higher.
Yeah.
The fact that we have to bombard their minds into having as many O levels as possible, which fall along the way. With the more qualified you get, they just don't mention them anymore in your CV. And what I try to instill anyway is like, at the end, do you want a piece of paper that they're going to give you at the end? Yes. Then get it with support, because on it there's not going to be written that you've done it on your own. That's why there's support.
Yeah.
Talk it out, scream it out. I know that. I'm an expert at that because I do it myself. But keep going. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's important to share, and
as long as it helps.
As long as it helps.
But
yes.
you have to find the right way and the right outlet as well, because it's important that you find the right outlet for you. Outlet in the sense of friends, family, someone who can support you, and someone who's
yes, that's important.
Someone you trust to be vulnerable around with. So
exactly.
I think that's key there.
Exactly. It's the relationship that works.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basis of it all. Without the relationship, you can't, share certain things, or have anybody who's going to trust you, or you trust the person.
And that takes time as well. So building a relationship takes time.
Yes, it does.
You have to be brave enough to make the first step, and to be a little bit vulnerable, and then you become more vulnerable.
To be vulnerable, actually, a lot, because I know I am not brave actually, but it happens. It's the humanity as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a huge respect for young people, and that is sometimes I find lacking with older people. Just because I'm older, you should respect me, but I should respect them too.
Still needs to be earned. Respect is always earned.
Yes, but still, it's not easy being a young person. There's a lot going on. There's internet. There's all these influences. There's all this, branding. All this, you have to do this, be there, wear that, eat that, look like that, act like that. A lot of influences that maybe young people tend to take them on a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because the messages out there are targeted a lot. Just like when I was younger. Now, if the fashion is this, then I want to belong. We're going back to what you said, no? The belonging as well is what I wear, the way my being and doing is the belonging. And the belonging gives me strength, just like I mentioned in the project, when they were so comfortable that in the room they could be themselves, because everybody else is dyslexic. So it was great. It has to be seen, because it was like something amazing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being involved in like the logistics and the coordination, and sometimes you forget, and you see it happening. Come, I will show you your room. And they're friends, they're friendly immediately.
Because they know there's something that ties them together.
We're together, we're us,
There's something that ties them together.
I think so.
Rose, thank you for being part of the show. I think we had a good conversation about...
maybe. I spoke a lot, that's for sure. But
it's
I
okay.
hope it serves as an encouragement at the end of the day.
Yeah.
For parents, anyway.
I think there was a strong message on resilience, passion, and not giving up.
Yes, sometimes I need it myself as well, not giving up.
So you hear the podcast again?
Yes,
for yourself.
I will say, yes, I will consider how many times I say. But it's only human. It's only human. That is why support is important. And support even with a twist. Support as in making fun of you. Making fun of, in a way that works for you. You know what I mean? So that worked for me as well. But obviously it has to be in a relationship that is safe. Otherwise, it's not like you're going to, everybody has to have the right measure and everything.
Sometimes we're too serious, myself included. So
it's true. But thank you for the invite and the opportunity to talk about dyslexia practically.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Rose.